Welcome back to the Limitless Potential Show. I'm your host, Vanessa Jane Patrick, speaker, trainer, and head coach from Live, Love, Give. And today I cannot wait to introduce you to the incredible Dr. John Demartini and dive into the world of wisdom that he shares with us, as always, in this interview. And this interview was just recorded prior to me going to two back-to-back special courses from Demartini. The first one I went to was Master Planning for Life. So this was recorded the night before I hit the ground running with the 3-day workshop, taking my laptop in, getting this document, which was like 50,000 words, something like 450 pages of a master plan for life to make, in every single area of life. It was phenomenal, incredible, and it ultimately made me, on the very last day, change my flights back to Melbourne, stay in Sydney for the breakthrough experience, which was just over the weekend, straight after that 3-day Master Planning for Life. And I'm so grateful that I did, because life is just not the same as even a week ago. So I'm incredibly excited to share this special interview with you guys. And also coming forward, I will definitely be sharing my greatest takeaways from those two incredible events. And my hope is that you definitely dive into the work of Dr. John Demartini, and I hope that today's interview inspires you to do so. So for anybody out there who has not yet come across the incredible work of Dr. John Demartini, I'll introduce you to him prior to the interview. So Dr. Demartini is considered one of the world's leading authorities on human behavior and personal development. He is the founder of the Demartini Institute, a private research and education organization with a curriculum of over 72 different courses covering multiple aspects of human development. His trademarked methodologies, the Demartini method and the Demartini value determination, are the culmination of 44 years of cross-disciplinary research and study. His work has been incorporated into human development industries across the world. Dr. Demartini travels 360 days a year to countries all over the globe, sharing his research and findings in all markets and sectors. He is the author of 40 books published in over 29 different languages. He has produced over 60 CDs and DVDs covering subjects such as development in relationships, wealth, education, and business. Each program is designed to assist people to activate leadership and empower themselves in all 7 areas of their lives, from financial, physical, mental, vocational, spiritual, family, and social. So I know there's so many different questions that I've asked the incredible Demartini throughout this interview, and definitely probably hundreds of questions over those 5 days that I spent working with him in his courses. So I'm so excited to share this with you, because I know the wisdom and the knowledge that he can impart, and he does it with such heart. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the incredible Dr. John Demartini. Okay, so welcome, John. I'm super excited to interview again. My audience absolutely loved you last time, and I know that you've got such a wealth of knowledge that I can't wait to dive in again.
Well, great.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite.
Awesome, and I'm super excited because I'm coming to your 3-day workshop on Master Planning Your Life tomorrow.
Yep.
And I'm pumped. I was actually going to book the Breakthrough Experience because that was the first book of yours that I ever read, and I absolutely loved it, and I geek out over that stuff. But then when I was booking that event, went to go and book it, I saw your Master Planning for Life, and I thought, I love the Breakthrough Experience sort of things, but I know I need the Master Planning for Life because that's an area that I definitely struggle. So can't wait to do that with you.
Thank you.
Yes, and so I know you were in Melbourne last night, you're in Sydney for the next few days, and yeah, just for anybody who hasn't heard about you too much, I know that I'd love for them to know how much you travel the world and do what you love and live in your values. So can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I'm a guy that loves traveling and teaching.
Yeah.
I've been teaching for 45 years plus, and I do travel full-time, so I'm nomadic. I'm a homeless person in some respects.
Yeah.
But I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing but to research, write, travel, and teach. So I've been doing that for a long time. I go to many countries in a year, sometimes up to 60 countries in a year. And I just love researching, which is what I'm doing today, and in between media interviews and consults. I get to do my three-day program on master planning, because I believe that if you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day tends to fill up with low priority distractions that don't.
Absolutely.
So I'd rather give people the opportunity to take command of their life and structure their life.
Definitely, and I know I need a little of that, so I can't wait to learn from you. And yeah, you're an absolute inspiration to me, the way that you do live, and I don't think many people in the world could, you know, travel that much, you know, but personally I've been traveling for about 3.5 years, and yeah, I can't bring myself to live in other people's values in terms of, why aren't you going to buy a house, and why aren't you going to just stay in this one location? So I completely resonate with your lifestyle, and that's why it fascinates me, I think. But yeah.
Not everybody wants that.
No.
I very commonly say, well, where do you live? And I said, well, it depends. At the end of the year, I look at where I was the most, and then I call that was home for the year. My residence is a ship.
Yeah.
So I live on a ship that goes around the world. So if I'm not flying around the world, I'm sailing around the world. And I've just been a dreamer of traveling the world. I always love to be on the move, so I do it.
I love that. It's awesome, awesome. So yeah, just wanted everybody to absolutely know that about you and your lifestyle. And what I really, really wanted to dive into and pick your brain about is a topic that is absolutely at the forefront of my mind and of my audience. And we've been communicating a lot about it and trying to work things out. But you know, the people who are going to be listening to this message, they're absolutely people who are striving to get to a new level of their potential. They don't want to settle for ordinary. They absolutely want to reach for the extraordinary, and definitely they want to know how they can contribute at higher levels. So they're all about growing themselves for the purposes of contributing at higher levels so that they can ultimately access fulfillment. And with that ability to grow and contribute at higher levels, we've been talking about the concept of how are we evolving our consciousness, how are we up-leveling our consciousness. And I would love to dive into a little piece of your wisdom, whatever you feel is relevant to share around. I know you've got some work around the science of consciousness, and I think that what I love about what you do in personal development is bring some science behind these concepts that it gets people, because there's a lot of doubters out there, but when you can bring some more of the science, people start to get it, and therefore they can break through and utilize that wisdom. So yeah.
Well, everybody lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important in their life, that's unique to them. No two people have the same set of priorities. Whenever they are taking actions and pursuing objectives that are truly highest on their value, they are spontaneously, intrinsically driven from within to achieve them. Whenever they're doing lower values, they need outside motivation to remind them and keep them on that track. So discerning about an intrinsic value that's unique to them and setting sail as captain of their ship and master their fate in that direction increases the probability of achievement, which initiates a person to expand the space and time horizons of what they achieve. So every time they achieve something, they tend to want to go to something greater. I'll use an example of something that most people can relate to. A 12-year-old boy who loves video games. His highest value is video games. His parents have to try to motivate him to go do homework and cleaning up his room. But he spontaneously loves his video games. He can do those all day long. The second he conquers a video game, he has a spontaneous desire to want to go to a more advanced game and upgrade and go to the next challenge. So whenever we're pursuing things that are truly most important, most meaningful, most inspiring, that are intrinsic values, we automatically have a desire to tackle challenge, not shrink from it, and to upgrade and expand and to do more and to see what we're capable of. But if we set a goal that's lower on our values, we tend to procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate instead of be disciplined, reliable, and focused. As a result of it, we tend to limp our life, not walk our talk. And we tend to not achieve. And then we end up doubting ourselves, and we tend to shrink our space and time horizons and want a simpler life and want to escape challenge. So when you're pursuing challenges that inspire you, you birth innovation, creativity, and original ideas that bring a paradigm shift. So you're not just subordinating as a sheep into a tradition or convention, you're originating something original that really changes the way things are done. So the first step in raising consciousness, expanding consciousness, is to make sure that you're on a daily basis being authentic to your highest values and prioritizing your daily actions. As I said, if you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, your day will fill up with low priority distractions that don't. One expands you, one contracts you. So if they want to play a bigger game, the most significant thing they can do is to first identify what's really valuable to them, what's truly they're committed to, and then prioritize their daily actions. Gary Keller, in his book, The One Thing,
Oh yeah, yes.
So what he basically was saying, and it's a truism, that if you ask yourself on a daily basis, what is the highest priority action I can do today that can help me fulfill my service, my mission on planet Earth, what I feel I'm called to do, and stick to that, get it done that day, not a project, but a daily action. Get it done, achieve it, reward yourself for that. Then you go and ask, what's the highest priority action step I can do today to make that my mission come true? If they keep staying on high priority, their self-worth goes up, their confidence goes up, their space and time horizons expand, they go in, activate their, instead of their amygdala, which is avoiding pain and seeking pleasure like an animal, they go into the executive center and they see inspired visions, they see strategic plans, they want to execute the plans, and they have self-governance and mastery. So the highest priority thing that the person can do to upgrade is to make sure that they do priorities of the highest nature each day and master the skill of delegating lower priority things that hold them back.
I love that, and I love that you brought up the one thing, because I actually got some pretty intense coaching from Jeff Woods, who's the spokesperson for the one thing, and I was interviewing him, and you know, we were talking about the one thing, and I love the concept of earning your right to get to the second thing on that list, you know, and he said to me, you know, what do you do? And I showed him I had three big long, not one to-do list, I had three big long to-do lists that I couldn't get through, and they were just going to the next day and the next day and the next day. And he got me to pretty much rip them up and just go for that one thing. And it completely revolutionized what I was doing, and realized that I had a lot of low priority tasks going on that I was expecting myself to do. And as you would, I think, say, you know, living according to somebody else's set of values as opposed to my own. And I'm still battling that. That's why I'm really grateful that I'm coming to your event over the next few days.
Well, if you don't say yes to the things that are inspiring to you, you're, you know, and say no to the things that aren't, you're going to let the world around you dictate your destiny instead of yourself.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to get up in the morning and dedicate their life to your fulfillment.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody's going to project their values onto you. And if you have difficulty saying no for fear of rejection, because you subordinate to others instead of lead, you're automatically going to end up scattering yourself and distracting yourself, and devaluing yourself by lower priority things. Your own self-worth have a lot to do with where you play in your own value list. So if you're living from the highest level of the value list, you raise your value. And when you value, so does the world. So your net worth ends up reflecting that.
Oh, I think that that's so true, and I've had the privilege of actually experiencing moments in time of that over the last year, which has been really, you know, revolutionary to my mindset, and showing, you know, because we're sometimes so scared of leaving behind the value set that we feel we should be living into because we want the approval or the validation from those people in our lives. And it's really scary to make that first step out of that. But, you know, once we do, I think that what you've just said has so much truth, you know?
Well, as long as we live in the shadows of people instead of on the shoulders of giants, we're going to shrink, not shine. And so we have to be able to say thank you, but no thank you. And if you don't have a series of communication skills on how to say no to things, but I found that when you actually have a very filled day with things that are highest in priority, it's easy to say no.
Yeah.
So that all it starts is you deciding what are the highest priority actions and filling your day with them. And if you do that, a whole lot changes. And many people are afraid to delegate, but you really can't live an inspired life without it. And that forces you to make sure that whatever your highest priority is, that it's something of service to others, so you have some sort of fair exchange, sustainable fair exchange to earn an income to be able to pay for the delegations. So the universe works in a beautiful way to make sure that we stick to priority, do something that serves, learn to give other people the opportunity to do what they love doing through delegation, and upgrade the entire economic system.
Oh, I love that, because like, imagine a world where every single person would live according to their values, and if no two people's values are the same. Absolutely, so that, you know, everybody could be specializing in what absolutely enlivens and energizes them, and filling the parts, you know, maybe the voids of other people, so that, you know, somebody's taking care of that, and we can all just focus on what we're great at.
Well, our values are evolving, and I tend to think that there's a collective, I guess you could say, as Jung called it, a collective consciousness, that there is a place for everybody in their highest value. So you may, I know in my own life, some of the things I do today, when I was 20, wouldn't have been something of a priority.
Yeah.
So as I've evolved my journey, the things that are inspiring to me today were different than what they were. So I had a place in where I was at the time, and it's different than today. So there's always a place for everyone. And the degree of engagement is proportional to how well they can see that the responsibilities that they have and the actions that they do are matching what they value most. And if you give people the opportunity to do something that they are inspired by, they will excel. We often label people out of our own ignorance and our own projections of our values onto others, expecting them to live in ours. And we unwisely hire people and select people for positions that are not inspired by, and then end up labeling them, and then wondering why we're micromanaging and having to go down into lower values, and not liberating ourselves and engaging them in something great.
Absolutely, I love that. And I've heard you speak into, you know, fantasy leading to fear. And but one thing I wanted to talk about, because I think that's what you've been mentioning, you know, when we have that fantasy of, you know, creating a goal that's not aligned with our values and potentially somebody else's values, we're going to be led to fear. But I have a question for you in terms of what if we've identified, you know, what our highest values are, and there's a goal that we've set for ourselves that we think consciously is aligned to our highest values, but we're still getting caught up in maybe more busy work rather than the work that's going to really move the needle forward.
Well, every decision we make is based on what we think at that moment is going to give us the greatest advantage or disadvantage. We do a risk assessment and the probabilities. We look at what we think is going to give them the greatest advantage or disadvantage. What we think is valuable in that setting, we may think, oh, we should have done this. But 9 times out of 10, when somebody thinks I should have done that, it's not their values, it's somebody else's that they were subordinating to at the time. And that's what the confusion becomes. So if we all of a sudden, if we're out in the middle of nowhere and there was nobody else that we could look up to and ingrain their values into us, we would just make decisions based on our values. But the second we get around a social group and we think, well, they're smarter than us, they have more knowledge than us, they have more success than us, they have more wealth than us, they have a better relationship than us, more socially savvy than us, more physically fit than us, more spiritually aware than us, and we minimize ourselves to them. Without us realizing it, we'll inject those values, and what we think is important, we'll think is ours, but it's actually an injected set of values. And we have to very carefully discern what our life really demonstrates as valuable to us. It's important. I ask people by the thousands, how many want to be financially independent? Everybody puts their hand up. But only 1% or less obtain it. So 99% of the people live in la-la land, thinking they're going to be financially independent. But what their values actually is, they want immediate gratification and they want consumables that depreciate in value. They don't want to keep buying assets that go up in values. So the second they get money, they spend it according to what their hierarchy of values is, and not according to what they say. I want to be financially independent. So you really have to be truly honest with yourself about what your values are. That's why I put the values factor and the value determination process on my website, to give people at least an opportunity to be objective about it and not, live in a fantasy about what they think is important to them.
Absolutely. And I think that that's part of it. The question that I was asking you, I was kind of relating to something that I was going through, which was that whole sort of thinking that the goal that I'm setting is something that is absolutely aligned with my values, but I think my need for instant, immediate gratification or the payoff quickly. So because I would focus on other things that were also aligned with my values, but I got the payoff right here, right now, as opposed to in the future.
That financial security possibly may be higher on your values than you realize than the other. And that's, you have to be honest with yourself. Your life demonstrates your values. So you just got to look carefully. When I look at what my values are, I look at what my life demonstrates. If I look at my life and I videotaped it for a month, without a doubt, the thing that would show up highest on it, and the things I do most, is teaching. I mean, I literally do all day teaching. I mean, I think I've done 31 presentations already this year. So, so I'm constantly doing that, or interviews. I mean, I do 3 interviews today, and I just do interviews every day. So I'm involved in teaching, so I can make up stuff. I could say all kind of things. But what my life demonstrates, that's what my decisions reveal in my life. So you have to go and start with what you know your life is demonstrating to set real objectives, and not live in the fantasy that you wish it would be this, or hope it would be, or should be this, that kind of thing. You have to look at what your life really demonstrates. Start with what you know and let what you know grow if you're setting goals.
Definitely. And I'm sure I'll learn a lot more about that over the next few days as well with you. And I want to ask you, is there anything, because you mentioned if you were to put a videotape yourself for a month, and watch your life back, that you'd be living in those values, teaching, researching, you're traveling and all of those things. I wonder, is there anything that you do that you don't like doing? You don't enjoy doing?
Well, most of the things in my life have been delegated. So I have a pretty simple dynamic. But I definitely have things that challenge me along the way. I may have an airline say that somehow we've overbooked, and you have a first class seat ticket, but we have booked that ticket. and I go, oh, really? So how do we solve that? Or a hotel that, overbooked, something may happen. And I don't like to have to, confront those things sometimes. I'd rather just have it taken care of. That definitely challenges me. Sometimes I have deadlines that are very intense, and they have very, very intense schedules where I'm literally landing and I don't even have a shower time to get to my venue because there's been a delay. And I go, okay, so I may get a diaper wipe and a long haul from LA to Sydney and a diaper wipe and wash myself or something like that. So I have those kind of challenges, but those are really minor. Most of the things I have been delegated. So I research, write, travel, teach. And most people can't really comprehend, they don't understand that. That there's nothing else you have to do. And I say, I don't cook, I don't drive, I don't do financials. Everything has been structured, I've been delegated, I've put it to specialists. I do what I pretty well do.
I'm like so inspired by you talking into that, because obviously I push so many people to your values determination test online because it's so straightforward. For me, I've been in personal development for a long time. I've done a lot of different, ways of identifying your values with different amazing human beings who are doing great things in the world. But I came up with the most clarity in my values when I came across your values determination test. And I just did it recently again. And like my highest values are also teaching and learning. So I like to be the teacher and the student kind of simultaneously and feeding those. And definitely travel and my health and beauty. They're kind of they're my absolute highest values.
Well, last time I cooked, I was 24.
Wow.
It's been 27 and a half years since I've driven a car.
Wow.
So those are anything. I found out that anytime I'm doing something that's not inspiring to me, I'm decreasing the probability of living an inspired life. So why would I do it? why would I not go and try to find a way to do what something I am loving to do? You know, I have 7 questions that might help people listening.
Yeah.
That I found really powerful. That ask yourself, what is it I would absolutely love to do in life? That my life demonstrates is truly important to me, that inspires me, that I can't wait to get up in the morning and do. First, to find one of those. The second thing is, how can I get handsomely and beautifully paid to do that? And most people think, how can I afford to go do what I love? Instead of, how can I get paid to do what I love? And they got it backwards. So they're living for debt instead of living for profit. And so because if you have doing something you love to do, every day is, instead of having Monday morning blues and Wednesday hump days, and thank God it's Friday, it's week friggin' ends.
Week friggin' ends.
You have, every day is a Sunday.
Yeah.
A light day. So I am a firm believer in asking that. And then the third question is what are the highest priority actions I could do today to move me one step closer to that reality? And then the next one is, what obstacles might I run into, and how do I preempt them and solve them in advance? So if they come, I'm looking forward to them and I know what to do.
Yeah.
Then what worked and what didn't work today as a feedback refinement.
Yeah.
And then how do I do whatever I'm doing more effectively and efficiently? And then how did whatever happened to me today, how did it ultimately help me fulfill this objective? Those 7 questions really do help people move closer to what they love in life, and can make a difference in a life of inspiration or a desperation.
Absolutely. Is that something that you do on a daily basis, or is that?
Well, I've done that over the years, and I already know what it is.
Yeah.
So I've already been through the cycle, and I've summarized it, and then I surround myself with people to do the rest.
Yeah.
And I try my best to get people that do those things, that are inspired to do it. So I'm around inspired people doing things that are helping me doing inspiring things. It's a step-by-step process. It didn't happen overnight.
No.
It took a while, but you know, what else are you going to do? Why would you not want to organize your life in such a way that you can say thank you each day?
Absolutely.
And I keep a long list of gratitudes because of that. I have the largest list of gratitudes of anybody I've ever met.
Well, yeah, on gratitudes, I know you've spoken into, you know, really that anything that you're not grateful for becomes your baggage, and anything that you are grateful for becomes your fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that that's such an important way of looking at it. I think it's brilliant. And you know, can you give us maybe some examples of, you know, maybe how that's been true in your own life or in people that you work with, how they make that mental shift to be grateful?
My belief is today is that in each area of life, whether it be a spiritual quest, an intellectual mental quest, a business quest, vocational quest, a financial quest, a financial independence, a family or love and intimacy quest, a social leadership quest, or a physical fitness quest, no matter what area of life, the symptoms that we experience in our life are nothing more than feedback mechanisms to guide us to our highest values to live authentically. Once you really realize that that's all that's ever going on, that there's nothing but a homeostatic mechanism going on, it's called autotelia and heterotelia, inside us and outside us, trying to get us to our telos, our highest value. Once we understand that, we see life from a different perspective, and we see it's on the way. Because now we're doing it. We'll give an example. When I was doing, in practice many years ago, lower priority things, I was finding myself scattered, frustrated, sometimes angry. I felt like I was overwhelmed. And then I was taking out some of that frustration on clients or staff or family. And I'm thinking, okay, why am I being this way? It's behavior. And then when I actually prioritized what I did, I made a list of everything that I do in a day, personally and professionally. Next to it, I wrote down how much does it produce per hour, each of those items, those actions. How much meaning does it have on a 1 to 10 scale? What would it cost to delegate that per hour with all costs, not just the salary cost, but placement cost, equipment cost. And then how much time was spent on it. When I actually inventoried it and then looked at what the priorities really were and what produced for me, I was going, oh. So I then started prioritizing my actions. I delegated slowly but surely, not overnight, but slowly but surely. I hired another person, got that off my back, another one, got it off. Eventually I was doing what I loved, just researching and teaching and traveling and stuff. And I noticed that all those symptoms, the overwhelm, the anxiety, the frustration, the irritabilities, all that, they were not there. They were there for a purpose. They're not a flaw. They're a feedback. People have these ideas that I need to get rid of my negative thinking. or something like that's a flaw. No, that's a feedback to let you know that you're not living by priority and you're not doing things that you're inspired by. And it's a feedback to make sure you go back and restructure how you're doing. That's all. Once you see it that way, you're actually grateful for all those things because they're not going to let you down.
Yeah.
They're going to be there for you until you get it centered.
Absolutely. I think that's a brilliant way to look at it, because instead of treating the symptom, you get to the cause. You're like,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people are willing to, you know, put a rubber band and pop it, go cancel that or something, or get rid of that. You know. But I don't do that. I look at those responses and those events that occur at what they're actually saying. And they're telling me to get and prioritize and not be out of integrity with who I am. The universe is trying to help you become integrated and also masterful and a magnificent person that you really are.
I love that. And I want to sort of transition into another topic that I'm finding, you know, I coach a lot of people, I interact with a lot of people, obviously not as many as you from around the globe, but I definitely get to dive into their minds and see what they're struggling with. And I've noticed that, and you, I'm hoping, I'm sure you would have a perspective on this, but the relationship with somebody reaching their highest potential through living in their highest priority values and their religious background. And I'm meeting a lot of people who have grown up in a heavily religious backgrounds who are, you know, getting into, you know, different stages of their life and finally breaking out of that or seeing a new truth. And I don't know, it's this massive challenge where I think that they kind of like want to leave all of it behind and think it's all bad and move into the realm of just zero religion. And I've grown up in an atheist family, but I went to a Christian school, and so I've been introduced to bits and pieces, and I've had to challenge myself to move more into that realm and be more appreciative of it. And that's the work I've done over the last few years. And seeing them sort of totally disregard it, and do you believe that that's kind of a stage that we need to go through, maybe our independence from old belief systems and things to be able to access new potential? And I don't know, maybe I'm not asking a very clear question.
I have an idea. I don't know if I can say this in 2 seconds, but there is, in William James, The Variety of Religious Experiences, in Deepak in his How to Know God, in Will Durant in his studies of philosophy and religion, and others, Picard, others, they have outlined that there is a evolvement or stages of religious understanding. The lowest stage is very animalistic, where you avoid predator, you seek prey. You avoid negative, you seek positive. You avoid pain, you seek pleasure. And this is the most bottom. So this is punishment and reward, hell, heaven, bad karma, good karma, thinking. Very black and white, very polarized, absolutist, moralist constructs. And that's where the most dense, rigid, absolutist thinking processes are. And these individuals are there's lots of conflict associated with them, and my religion's good and yours is bad and this kind of thing. After banging your head against the wall with a little insight from maybe the Buddha, the desire for that which is unavailable and the desire to avoid that's unavoidable is a source of human suffering. So trying to polarize it and not realize that everything has birthed a pair of opposites. You can get caught in this idea of trying to get rid of something in your life and trying to be it. And many people are trying to get rid of half of their life instead of love the whole thing. And that's futile. You'll never get rid of any trait in your life. That's an illusion. And you'll never gain a trait. You already have it. You're just unaware of it. So that's the stage. Then there's another stage where you're getting gradually more gray. And you realize that you have this event, you think it's terrible, and then a day, a week, a month, a year, 5 years later, you find out, oh, there's blessings in it. And this thing you think is all great, this new infatuation, you go, oh my God, I had no idea this guy's got this problem. You eventually see two sides of things. And you gradually work your way until you integrate these pair of opposites. In fact, religion means to re-ligate the ions, the charges, the polarities of life, and to integrate them into a whole. Just like our mind, when we're highly judgmental, if we're infatuated, we're conscious of the positives, we're unconscious of the negatives. So when we're infatuated, we're actually judging, and we're splitting our mind into a conscious and unconscious. And if we're resentful, we're conscious of the negatives, we're unconscious of the positives. Again, we're splitting our mind into both. Yeah. But when we actually love something, really love something, not infatuate, confused as love, we see both sides, and we embrace both sides. If I went to you and I said, you're always nice, you're never mean, you're always kind, you're never cruel, you're always positive, you're never negative, you're always sweet, you're never bitter, you're always considerate, you're never inconsiderate.
Call you a liar.
You're always, you would innately know that the bullshit meter would go, you know that that's not true.
Yeah.
If I said, you're always mean, you're never nice, you're always cruel, you're never kind, you're always negative, you're never positive, your bullshit meter would go off again. But if I said, sometimes you're nice, sometimes you're mean, sometimes you're kind, sometimes you're cruel, sometimes you're peaceful, sometimes you're wrathful, you immediately go, yep. So you have an intuitive prompt to try to take you from those polarities to a synthesized state, where the dialectic of philosophy was attempting to take philosophers, the lovers of wisdom, too. And so religiosity, the development of this religious construct, goes from the most polarized forms to the most synthesized forms. And people, when they bang their head against the wall trying to be a one-sided person, they eventually realize that's not working. And they go to the other extreme, that's not working. And they eventually lead themselves gradually through this process. Now, wisdom is not saying, well, that was bad. It was a stage. I always say this, the Buddha says that I will teach them the illusion until they're ready for truth. Think about it at kindergarten, no, elementary school. If you study chemistry, you'll see that there's a little ball and a stick, a bond, another little ball. And you think, oh, atoms are little balls. Then you go to high school and you find out the Bohr model, Niels Bohr, that the electrons go around it and it looks like this little gyrating thing, and it was a sphere, but it was actually a moving electron. And so the ball model is now, wasn't quite true, and this is a little truer, they think. But then you go to college and you find out it's quantum numbers. It's complex mathematics with the square root of -1 numbers in it. And it wasn't even one of those two things. And you had to go there and you go, wait a minute now. I thought I knew what it was. Now it's more abstract. And then you go on to professorship and you find out that there's flaws in that model, and there's now theorists trying to solve those problems. So it becomes more and more abstract. So you had to teach the illusion until you're ready for truth. And so the stages of religious development have to go through these elusive states of one-sidedness and high morality to eventually an unconditional love of the soul. The soul is the state of unconditional love in that respect. So there's a normal development. To say that you're an atheist, in a sense, is also kind of a question. Most atheists are actually negating anthropomorphic religions that are made out of people that are living in fear, creating artificial gods to protect them from their fears. And so they're countering false gods, man-made gods. They'd have moralities based on the projection of the human onto the gods. But then there's a higher level of physics, of symmetry and elegance and mathematics and conservation laws, Nether's theorems, and very subtle equations that are magnificent equations that encompass many things. And that could be a worship, in a sense, of the laws of the universe. And that could be a religating of the awareness of positives and negatives. And that would be the highest level of religious understanding. It may be impersonal, it may be not anthropomorphic. And so I don't think anybody is really theistic or atheistic in some context. They're a person on a quest for the integration of their experiences into an appreciation of love. If you had only 24 hours to live, people say, thank you, I love you to people. So I think it's really ultimately that. And every religion ultimately is leading to that in its own stages and its own awareness. So I wouldn't negate any of them, because that'd be like saying, I want to get rid of the entire education system and no longer have kindergarten. I want to go direct to the PhD level and forget all the stages. You have to teach those illusions till people are ready for a greater abstract truth.
Wow, I think that that's such a brilliant way. I know so many people who will be watching this video are absolutely going to have their minds blown by what you just said then. I think that's a brilliant way. I've just had my mind blown, because I think that we get so caught up in the personal level of what religion is, or the system of religion, and so many people who are exiting that religious background, they're wanting to be more encompassing of everybody, you know, and so their level of development in their consciousness is, I guess, higher than what the system is currently at.
Well, there's a tradition in a Christian tradition, one of the final books of the more common Bible, because there's been many Bibles over the years. But the Multnomah Bible ends with the book of Revelation. And this book of Revelation, it talks about the 7 churches of Christianity. And it's opening up these seals, and the wrath of their perceived God is now going to punish all the people who claim to be Christians but are just hypocrites. They're not fully Christianed.
Yeah.
And what they're really depicting there is the stages of moral development and understanding, all the way to a final stage where you finally say, thank you, I love you. And then you're not denying a real laws of the universe or a divine intelligence in the universe. I always say those that are searching for God the most are the ones denying the God's presence the most. Because there is a magnificent universe that we're actually in. And the more you explore the various disciplines and ologies, the more humble you are to a permeating intelligence. Einstein said, it's enough for me on a daily basis to contemplate the intelligence that permeates the universe. That's my idea of worship. And he lived in holy curiosity for the understanding of the laws that governed it. And many of the great philosophers have understood that. Many of the theologians were philosophers that syncretically integrated the philosophies into these theological constructs. So I'm a firm believer that true religiosity allows in the development of all of it.
That's fascinating, and I love how you've articulated that. I really appreciate that. I just have 2 final questions for you that I really want to dive into. And I hope they're not like too out there. I know you could talk forever probably about each of them, but I want to ask you, when somebody asks you what love is, you know, would you be able to tell us what would you say to that? What is love?
Well, I define it. Since I've been teaching the breakthrough experience for nearly 30 years. I've done it 1,123 times, about to do 1,124. In that program, I developed a method called the Demartini method. And it's a series of questions, very concise, very specific questions, that assist the mind, as the intuition does, in becoming aware of the unconscious, to make the conscious and unconscious equal on terms, so you can be fully conscious of what's there. To not see the filtered reality that's subjectively biased, but to see what's actually there objectively. And in that state, when people do that, and they bring symmetry to the mind, and a synchronicity and a synthesis to the mind, which is what happens if you follow it, out comes, thank you, I love you. And it doesn't matter what race or creed or color or age or sex it is, doesn't matter what religion people come in there with, it comes out every time. So to me, love, as abstract as this may sound, is the synthesis and synchronicity of all complementary opposites. Because in every perception, our perceptions are dealing with contrast. In Neuron magazine in 2016, they found that there was a discovery of what they called a memory and an anti-memory. And they found out that everything that you perceive, all the sensory experience you have, creates what is called a neuroassociative complex. This network of neurons that are firing synchronously creates an electronic behavior in the brain. And the brain, in order to neutralize that, creates an anti-memory with complete iconographies from your childhood and adulthood and associations in order to keep to balance it. So the mind actually has a conscious and a completely complementary opposite unconscious at the same time. And when they finally realized that, they realized the brain is a homeostatic mechanism trying to bring your body in physiology and psychology back into a poised state where you're present. And so the brain is actually a highest value seeking, inspired life fulfilling organ trying to help you see the magnificence of yourself and the world around you. So I think that the second you see both of those, you cannot not have a feeling of love. And I've taken about 90,000 people through that exercise personally in the program, and probably another that many outside the program. And it's a science, and it reproduces, and it gets that outcome if a person follows it to the letter. And each time, regardless of their background or language, out comes love. So I define love as a synthesis and synchronicity of all complementary opposites. And we may actually live in a universe where we're having the opportunity to experience an infinite variety of forms of these perfect symmetries, possibly for our entire existence. So what greater gift than that is?
Oh, absolutely. And I love that, because I have a new perception over the work that you do, which is really to bring people to love, to that equilibrium. And that's
what I'm always saying is that's the purpose of our lives, is to, you know, love fully and allow ourselves to love fully, you know, get to that place. So I really love that. I'm going to write that down. That's a great concept that I want to really think more into about how you articulate that.
When before the breakthrough experience, that's just an abstract word.
Yeah.
Once a person's actually gone through the method, the Demartini method, and actually completed it, and had tears of gratitude, and see the hidden order in what they thought was apparent chaos, and realize the symmetry that was actually there that they had overlooked. They have difficulty speaking. They're in awe and they're speechless because they just all of a sudden see a glimpse of the magnificence. It was Leibniz, the German philosopher, who wrote 3 books, the Odyssey, Monadology, and the Discourse of Metaphysics. In his Discourse of Metaphysics, the very first chapter, he said that there was a divine perfection, a divine beauty, a divine love, a divine order that few people ever get to know. But those that do, their lives are changed forever. When I read that when I was 18, I had tears in my eyes. I said, whatever that is, I want to find out what that is. I will explore the deepest mysteries of science and the depths of philosophy and theology to try to find out what that is and how that would be able to be reproduced and created, and then share that with people. So that's what I do.
Wow. I actually have tears in my eyes just you talking into that, and because to me, you know, part of the work that I've had to do to go into the three-day workshop with you over the next few days, answering some questions about what my most inspired moments have been, they've absolutely been moments that you just spoke into, where you get to witness somebody break through to that place of love, you know, to that place of like finally realizing that they don't have to let something that they've had that lopsided perception over hold them back anymore, and they can access both sides and come into that energy, you know.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I had a woman who I worked with not too long in the past who was having bulimia. So she was binging, and then she was secretly purging.
Yeah.
And we went a little questioning, and I did the Demartini method with her. And we discovered that when she was a young child, the time her father was there before he left, the time she had affection with him, a connection with him, is whenever he would feed her. So she had a very deep, ingrained association of dopamine with father feeding.
Yeah.
And the way she kept her father in her life was eating. That's how she felt the connection to her father, and it was not even conscious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she married a gentleman who had a bit of a fantasy about very small-bodied women. And so as a result of it, in order to keep her man and keep the affection from her father, she would eat to get the father's affection and then purge to keep her body the way it was. And she was damaging her body and her teeth and gums and everything else over this process. And she had an imbalanced perspective because she thought her father left her, and this is her way of keeping him. So I asked, when your father left, what did you miss? And we identified the specific traits, actions, or inactions that he demonstrated that she missed. Then we asked her who took them on as he was gone, who other people that took him on. And to her surprise, as there is, there's never a gain and loss of traits. There's only a transformation. There's a symmetry. There's a conservation. We don't see it, so we have this illusion of loss and gain, like the masses live in, as I described. But once she saw that there was no loss of father, and it was another form, and had been delegated into a form that was actually in line with where she wanted to go in life, she broke that idea that there was a missingness. And then I said, okay, so on the other side here, you want to keep your husband. Well, she had an infatuation with parts of him that she was dependent on. She also had buried resentment. So she was resenting him at the same time infatuating him.
Yeah.
So we took the method and we dissolved the infatuations that were hooking her and the resentments. And not only did the bulimia and the purging, you know, the binging and the purging stop, but she had a deeper appreciation. And then she called her father, she hadn't seen in a while, and just said, thank you for what you did. I've been bitter to you because you left us. But right now, the truth is, I really appreciate it. I wouldn't be where I am today with these beautiful children, the husband I have, if it wasn't the path. So thanks. She saw everything on the way, not in the way. Gratitude, instead of, you know, this illusion of how it's supposed to be. Our depressions, our comparisons, our current realities to fantasies that we get addicted to. Yeah. And she broke through all that. And that's the power of love.
Wow, I just loved hearing that example. That's absolutely touching my heart, just sinking into that woman's life. And I think I actually am going to have to book the breakthrough experience. I did the master planning. I'm going to have to do both. I can't help it. I want to be part of that environment. I think there's nothing more inspiring to me than that. So I love that. And my final question for you, because the podcast and the work is all around limitless potential, I want to ask you, you know, do you believe that the human potential is limitless? Well, yeah, and I might break my whole branding here with this.
No. This is a cosmological question. I'm writing a textbook on cosmology and cosmology right now,
amazing.
so that brings up a nice topic.
Yeah.
There's many different theories about the universe. Some believe that it has a beginning and an end. Some believe it's cyclic. Some believe it's a steady state, eternal. There's all different models.
Yeah.
There's a favor right now towards this Big Bang model, but there's all kinds of pitfalls in that. I have over 100 different things that show problems there.
Yeah.
But that has a lot to do with our construct as an individual, our relationship to our universe. And so if we believe that we have a potentially infinite universe that's unbounded, then we have the potential to explore that universe.
Yeah.
In a limitless fashion. I don't have any evidence to say that it's finite.
Yeah.
In fact, the evidence that I see doesn't point to that. The evidence doesn't lead to a finite ending to this thing, or beginning to this thing for that matter. Even though there's some atheistic and religious models that Lemaitre, who came up with the idea of a Big Bang, was a Catholic, and he wanted to be able to say that somehow God created the universe out of nothing. And so, but the problem is that what was there prior to that?
Yeah.
Is there a quantum field there that's fluctuating with particles and antiparticles at a vacuum level in a 0-point state that's creating these fluctuations, and the universe is born, singularity, and there's all kind of models. But that's just a model. And that was favorable because there's a lot of religious people in the world that like that idea.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's other models. And we could say there's a bouncing universe oscillating, as the Hindus might have thought.
Yeah.
There's many models. If that was the case, we may have particle and nanoparticle universes, and we may have multitudes of ways of looking at this universe. So in my opinion, I think there is a unlimited capacity for the human being to continue to explore this unlimited universe. And I think if we look at it right now, and I use the analogy of a person who thinks they're enlightened at this point.
Yeah.
A little guru sitting in a lotus position, sitting on the equator, going around in India, at the tip of India.
Yeah.
And he goes, I am enlightened, I am enlightened, I am enlightened, and he's shaking his head. If you look from the sun, 93 million miles away, 1 astronomical unit from him, the sun can't even see the Earth.
Yeah.
It's a speck. It's only 8,000 miles in diameter. It's 93 million miles away. You can't see it. So that little enlightened person is an infinitesimal. And then from the Milky Way, 28,000 light years, that's 86,400 seconds per day, times 365 per year. Imagine that. Times 28,000 of those, and the distance is how far light travels in a second, which is 186,000 miles a second.
Yeah.
Now you put all that together and you go, that's a vast distance to the center of the Milky Way.
Yeah.
To the center of the Milky Way, looking at the solar system, it's non-discernible.
Yeah.
It's an infinitesimal.
Yeah.
And then we live in a Virgo cluster, and the Virgo cluster is sitting in a supercluster. And that's sitting inside a small speck of a filament of plasma sitting in an observable universe. And we think the observable universe is only 1/42nd of what the whole universe is. We don't know that there's any boundary on that.
Yeah.
All we know is we have a boundary on what we know.
Absolutely.
And whatever we know, tomorrow we'll know more. So we have to live with holy curiosity. So the capacity of the human mind to even think of infinities with conceptual abstractions and think in terms of perfect symmetries tells me that if we can even conceive of them, we can probably pursue them.
Wow. I love that. Well, Dr. John Demartini, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to dive into your wisdom. I could talk to you all night, I'm sure, but I want to be respectful of your time. And I know that everything that you've shared today will be immensely valuable to all of the amazing viewers. And yeah, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.